traumas happen, and generally when they happen, we get things, we, how should I say this? We develop tools to be able to deal. And usually those things might come in the, if you're not aware of this, those things might come in a form of triggers. You might get triggered by something that no one else really understands why, and generally they won't ask you why because it's in the spur of the moment. You are reacting to something, and so you get triggered and you react. And people don't necessarily want to understand why you're being triggered or how to help you while you are being triggered. And so it is up to you as the person being triggered to like be able to eloquently and succinctly explain, okay, this is what's going on. Don't worry. This just happens, and this is why. And if you explain something that complex, so like easily and so simply to people, it will help them a lot. The best way I can explain it is my father used to tell me, and still does, if you can't explain something to a 3-year old, you do not understand it enough. You don't. So before trying to like explain something in the long to people, try to make sure that you yourself understand what you're trying to say, and so that the communication can pass better and so that they will want to hear more from you. Now, I deal with this differently because I have some difficulties communicating. Sometimes my ideas are not in alignment, and so like in my mind they're not like in alignment, and in a way that is very understandable. And so it takes me time, and the best way for me to explain something succinctly to someone is through trial and error, which means I'm going to have to explain it to someone at the very least in a very uncohesive or ununderstandable manner until they do understand what I'm trying to say, which is weird, but it is what it is. It's my process. Not everyone needs to understand your process. The only one that needs to understand your process is you. As long as you understand your process, you are fine. I am going to give you an example, okay? So, when I was in university, at some point, I had gone to one of the shops in university, and I had wanted to buy something. And I remember the girl had said that we don't take debit cards or credit cards. We just take cash. Or no, that's not it. We don't take credit. We only take debit, and or something along those lines. Today, none of the machines work, so we only take cash. And I remember that I had completely forgotten, or like the because my short term memory is shot. Okay, as I said in yesterday's video, because my short term memory is shot, I forgot that they had said that. So I took out my card, and then they just looked at me weird and was like, well, we just told you the cards don't work. And I was like, oh, and then I got mad and annoyed at myself, but they did not see that as me being annoyed at myself. They saw that as me being annoyed at them. And so that's when they started like, oh my God, they didn't necessarily try to understand the situation. And so they started to like, act weird around me and so on and so forth. But I was completely cognizant of the fact that I had done that and that this was what was happening. Now, another situation that happened along the same lines was that I was also in university, was when I was at a weekend intensive class, and during one point at some point during that excursion, I had to go sit down with the teacher, and the teacher, he, I guess he wasn't being in his time, like he wasn't respecting the time he had set for himself, and so he got annoyed with himself. And so if I had not known, because I yet again have gotten annoyed with myself, having other people think that I was getting annoyed with them, but in actuality I was getting annoyed with myself. And because I had that experience, I knew that that was what was happening, and so I didn't really take it like personally. I just took it as, okay, so he's annoyed at himself because he's not respecting the time he allotted to himself. And so it helps, when you understand something from the other person's perspective. But it helps. But the only time this comes into play is when you yourself have lived a similar situation as them. So, in either case, if you have or if you have not lived a similar situation as them, you need to be able to take yourself out of your what am I trying to say? Egoic mind, and put yourself in your superconscious mind, which has a more of a third person degree perspective on the situation, which will help you see a wider range of what is actually going on, which is what I was talking about yesterday in my insight. All right, so you need to be able to take yourself out of the situation, view the situation from a third person degree perspective, and be like, okay, so this is what is actually happening, and I'm not going to get offended or annoyed at the other person because that is their issue. And I can just be like, listen, I understand, and you just deal with it in your time, while I am just gonna sit back here and be like, okay, well, that's your ish. I don't need to get triggered by your ish. You're getting triggered by your own ish, and let's just leave it at that. And let's just part ways. Okay? So, is there something that you can just leave up to the other person and to deal, and you can just be like, separate yourself and not get triggered by their triggers? Ponder that.